Hey everybody, welcome to Off the Top Rope here on the Off the Mic Sports Network on YouTube. Reviewing AEW Dynamite, 2 weeks away from the 5-year anniversary show in Pittsburgh. And next week is Grand Slam. A lot of big stuff coming up, but you wouldn't know it with this dead-ass show from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania and Mohegan Sun. Nothing happened on this show. Nothing happened. It was the most basic, boring, terrible wrestling show that I have seen in a long time, and you wouldn't know that all the nerds in AEW land are gloating about they're going to get a TV deal, they're going to get 170 to 200 million. I've talked about how the deal is not going to mean anything if you're going to be putting crap out like this. So I'm going to go through a lot of this stuff as quickly as I possibly can because I'm frustrated. I'm really pissed off because, again, the consensus is that I don't want AEW to do well, and I'm rooting for it to fail. That's actually the opposite. I want AEW to do well. I just root for better than this shit because the level of talent that this roster, that Tony Khan has at his disposal on his roster, and to make the level of creative decisions that they have made consistently over a long time. And this goes further beyond like the stuff that I disagreed with a lot of people at what happened at All Out and the level of violence that they went to. This is just not good. Some of that stuff was in bad taste, but at least some of it fed into like a bigger picture story, like the Hangman Swerve stuff. Yeah, I would have left a spot out here and there, but it was a violent blood feud. It was one of the best feuds in AEW history. And then you watch a show like this and you're like, where the fuck is the rest of this shit? Like, it's unbelievable. So we start off the show, and it's Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho. And I'm like, what is the one thing that AEW, especially knowing that they have a huge lead-in that they want to keep, who is the one person that you don't want to put on television at that point? It is Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho is another example of just what is wrong with this company. 3-4 years ago, this guy was really a key cog in what was making AEW great. His character was great. The matches he was having were some of the best of his career. And it was furthering his legacy. And if you paid attention to me back in the day, I was heralding Chris Jericho for some of the work that he was doing in early AEW. Now, he is just mailing it in. He is just cashing checks and stealing money from Tony Khan. This is the worst version of Chris Jericho ever. And yet, that starts your show. That sets the tone for the night. Like, this was a deplorable decision. And like I said, just set the tone for the entire night. Admittedly, it was a fine match. But for God's sakes, you're having Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho open up your show and go almost 20 fucking minutes. What in the fuck is that? This is a rehash of a feud that happened and finished 4 fucking years ago. Like, what is this shit? Like, does Chris Jericho have like some dirty photos on Tony Khan or some like immense dirt on him that like Tony Khan can't get out of it? Otherwise, Chris Jericho is gonna out him whatsoever or some way. I don't understand this. I don't understand why A, Chris Jericho's opening your show, and B, why he's going 20 minutes in a match in his 50s when there are better and more capable talent that are getting paid a lot of money too that deserve TV time more than Chris Jericho does. That is fucking embarrassing. And this was an awful way to start the show. They used a roll of quarters in the finish. Chris Jericho tries to use a roll of quarters at the end, which when the fuck is a roll of quarters ever been used as a finish in like this in the last decade? Like, what the fuck is that? Orange Cassidy ducks. He gets the roll of quarters, uses it for an orange punch, and wins. Again, 20 minutes. That's the first 20 minutes of your show. So I'm going to be interested to see how the quarters look like for this because this was a debacle. Like, I don't understand what was going on. So then we get footage that was recorded at last week's Dynamite. It's Pac and Claudio. They deliver a promo, and Pac looks into the camera, wonders where Wheeler Yuta is. Pac said they have an AEW's Trios title match next week at Grand Slam, and it's time for Yuta to come to work. Claudio said he's not mad, he's just disappointed in Yuta. Claudio said he thought he taught Yuta better Claudio also said Yuta is old enough to make his own decisions, but asked him to do him a favor by showing up next week so they can defend the titles. And then Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir show up. Mox says he knows it's a lot for Yuta to handle, but he believes Yuta has the strength inside him to do the right thing. Mox said it's Yuta's choice, and he's free to leave, but he has a personal responsibility for the greater good, whatever that means. Moxley said Yuta has to look in the mirror every morning. He asked, what type of man are you that we taught you to be? And so asked the question. And so this is leading into, like, you know, the other dynamic of this whole heel turn that happened at All Out, where Wheeler is clearly, like, you know, very conflicted. He's obviously very loyal to Bryan Danielson, who's one of his heroes. The Moxley thing is already starting to wear thin. Like, nothing really happened on the show. I'll talk about some of the stuff that happened later on. Doesn't make me any more interested in the matches he's having with Darby Allin. It's this weird, like, kind of Nazi-ish kind of angle with the way that they dress in the white T-shirts and everything, and the skinheads. It's just it's an odd dynamic. They're hinting at some sort of hostile takeover, but nothing has happened yet. They're being intimidating. They're being what the BCC is. It's just a different version of the BCC. I think Marina Shafir has been doing okay in her, like, badass, like, woman beat up everybody gimmick, which is great. Here's the problem. We then get to Wheeler Yuta. We show footage of him being distracted while winning a match on Collision, which nobody watches. So then Alex Marvez tracks down Wheeler Yuta as he's leaving the building, which was interesting. So Alex Marvez asks Yuta about the demand that, hey, you show up and defend the trios titles next week at Grand Slam. Yuta spoke about being conflicted. He actually mistaked that next week was Wrestle Dream. It's actually, you know, Grand Slam, and Alex Marvez corrects him for that. So then the crew member shows up with his AEW trios title belt, hands it to Yuta, saying he had left it in the locker room. Yuta said if the others want one favor, that next week he'll kick whoever ass he has to. And my big issue with this is I like Wheeler Yuta. I think he's fine. The arc that he had to get into the BCC was actually one of the better things that AEW has done. He's fine. He's nothing special. And that's really where the problem in this all is like, why are we supposed to feel sympathetic for Wheeler Yuta? Like, we haven't cared about him in God knows how long. I said it on this channel when Wheeler Yuta was kind of picked by Swerve Strickland to main event a show to build to the match with Bryan Danielson at All In. I didn't care, because it's not a Wheeler Yuta thing. It's a booking issue. The fact that he was injured, he got thrown back into storylines without any real sort of direction. We don't really know him as a character. And so now, because of this, like, weird, odd divorce dynamic that's going on within the BCC, we're supposed to feel sympathetic for him. He's doing the best he can. To be honest with you, it's pretty decent work. Being very conflicted, selling that he's really distracted and really distraught over the nature of how graphic that angle was, seeing his hero get almost suffocated to death by Jon Moxley, and, like, you know, the guys who he helped build in this group, the BCC, are falling apart. So that's an odd dynamic to it. But again, it goes back to nobody gives a shit about Wheeler Yuta. I'm sorry, like, nobody cares, man. And so it's hard to buy into this storyline when you've got him really conflicted about everything, and then you're doing these angles on Collision. There's this odd dynamic going on backstage. He's going to potentially defend the trios title, so I'm glad they finally are addressing this, and we'll see how that gets sorted out next week. And we'll talk about that a little later on here in the show. So then we get, this was a waste of time. Hook takes on a guy named JD Ink. Guess what? He's a guy with a bunch of ink on him. Great. 1 minute match. Roderick Strong was on commentary for it. Hook beats this guy in like a minute with the red rum. So Hook heads up the stage. Roderick Strong's jawing at him. No physicality whatsoever. I could have done without having a wasted, like, you know, squash match to sell a match that you're going to have next week, which is Hook versus Roderick Strong. And the story build to that is ridiculous because Roderick Strong's foot was on the ropes when he got beat. That's how you're setting up. And I like Hook. The FTW title. It's got lineage to it, but nobody gives a shit about it. It's not formally recognized by the company. And then if you dare bring it up at a press conference, Tony Khan gets up on his high horse acting like it's a meaningful thing. It's not. So Hook's going to beat Roderick Strong because Roderick Strong, ever since losing the International Championship, really hasn't mattered. He kind of was borderline not even really mattering in even the build-up. Like, the Undisputed Kingdom's just a fucking disaster. So then we get a double dose of Alex Marvez on this night, which I like. I love Alex. I love his NFL coverage. I've worked with him in the past. So Marvez, he said there's going to be a trios open challenge, Claudio, Pack, and Wheeler, against an unnamed opponent for next week's Grand Slam. Private Party shows up. It's Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. They said, hey, that's right up our alley. We're in New York. It's going to be great. Cassidy said he looked really serious when he talked to Mox. Said, hey, Moxley, if you want a war, we should be you guys should let them be the first battle. Like, you should let us be the first battle. So, solid enough segment. But then they kind of undid this a little bit later on, but we'll get to that. Renee Paquette interviewing Christian Cage along with the rest of the Patriarchy. Nick Wayne, Mother Wayne, Killswitch are there. Christian speaks about Nick having a 4-way match against Rocky Romero, Leo Rush, and Kip Sabian on Rampage. Christian said this match would be the start of Nick's road to glory because he decided that he and Nick will hold championships at the same time. Christian said it would not go over well in the Moxley household because Moxley also wants the world championship. Obviously, Renee married to John Moxley. But he doesn't. But Mox doesn't have the contract for a shot of the world championship. Christian does. Christian then noticed that Nick wandered off camera during this interview because he saw Kip Sabian wandering into the room. They do this whole bit where hey, shut the camera off. He tells the camera person to shut it off. They keep rolling. Christian said he didn't know what Sabian's problem was with Nick, and he didn't care that his father died. Christian said he would put Sabian in the ground next to his father if he pulled this stunt again. So a couple of things here. How is this with Nick Wayne any way, shape, or form getting him built up to contend for a championship? Beating a 4-way against guys that don't matter on a show that doesn't matter. Why does that matter? I don't get that. That's an odd thing from Christian. The whole Christian act, I love him, man. He's one of the most underrated performers of all time. But this act is starting to get dull. And it probably started getting dull about 3 or 4 months ago. Because what is this? He insults people as dead dads. He has this father complex with Nick Wayne. He's dominant over Killswitch. Or Luchasaurus, whatever you want to call him, and nothing's changed. He's literally the same guy he was when he turned heel 3 years ago. Like, he's the same guy. Nothing has changed with this guy, and I love him to death. I'm willing to dismiss a lot of this, but it's getting to be, and it's my big problem with AEW. A lot of their characters over the years have not evolved, have not changed, have not done anything new, and that's what in part is leading to this product really struggling. So that was an odd segment. Then we get, man, I don't know what the fuck this was. Because it was set up between a couple matches and a couple segments on Collision, which you wouldn't have known if you don't watch Collision, which, God bless you. I was watching college football on Saturday. That's just what I do on Saturdays. I watch football. So it's Mariah May and Serena Deeb teaming up against Yuka Sakazaki and Queen Aminata. Queen Aminata's fine. Yuka Sakazaki's kind of like a cult favorite. She's got this, magical girl gimmick. There was a segment on Collision that raised the eyebrows of a lot of people, including, and I was a little bit miffed. And apparently, if you attack the segment between Mariah May and Yuka Sakazaki, and you go around and you're like, "Oh man, this is racist." Here's my problem, and maybe this is me just not understanding what's going on, but at the same time, especially considering where Mariah May was on the biggest show of the year, winning the women's championship over one of the greatest women's champions in company history in AEW. And Yuka Sakazaki's got this weird voice that people, and like, I understand that's part of like her character and her gimmick, but listen, Mariah May just dismissed her like she was nothing, like she was trash. And that's the part that opened up to me is like, yeah, I understand that Yuka's like got this underdog mentality, but when you've got Mariah May being completely disrespectful, patting her on the head and talking down to her, that doesn't do anything for me. And so then this match happens, Serena Deeb, I guess, turned heel on Queen Aminata. Queen Aminata, like, nobody knows her really well. She's okay, but there hasn't been a whole lot of reason to invest in her. Basically, Yuka goes for the win off of her your little springboard splash, the magical girl splash. She's on the verge of winning. Mariah May hits her in the back of the head with the AEW women's title belt. There's a DQ in this match. There are very few DQ finishes in AEW. And to do it on this? What the fuck, man? 8.5 minutes. This didn't need to happen. I have no fucking idea what they are doing with Mariah May. There is some level of advancement because afterwards, Mariah works over with the belt a couple more times, gave her a kiss on the cheek before exiting the ring. We then get Mina Shirakawa, who everybody's been advocating for. She's speaking in English in a subtitled video package about how Mariah wanted her to return. She said she didn't really recognize her, but Shirakawa said, hey, Mina is coming. And so it looks like Mina Shirakawa is coming back to America to be a part of this whole thing. Announced on the internet after Dynamite on Grand Slam, it will be Mariah May versus Yuka Sakazaki for the AEW Women's World Championship. Jesus. Jesus. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. This woman had one of the best angles, and it led to absolutely nothing. The match was fantastic at All In, and since then she has done absolutely positively nothing. And you've got ready-made people in that women's division that have some semblance of a build or had some semblance of a momentum. Hi, Jamie Hayter, who came back at All In on the fucking pre-show, and I got killed to death on the internet for basically insulting that. And look at it. I'm right. She's nowhere to be found on this show. Britt Baker's gone. That's a whole separate issue. Mercedes Moné is nowhere on this show. And then Mariah May, who had this big crowning moment, she's meandered in a random tag match that ends in 8 minutes via DQ to set up a match that she's going to have next week at Grand Slam against somebody that, God bless him, unless you're a diehard, nobody cares about Yuka Sakazaki. I'm sorry. Like, that doesn't make me racist or anything. That makes me a realist. You got to get us to invest in these people as opposed to just throwing fucking matches out there. It's nice that Mina Shirakawa is going to come back because, frankly, Mariah May kind of needs it because if Toni Storm's just not going to be around, I don't know what Mariah May's doing because they're not utilizing the talent in their women's. Deonna Purrazzo, where the fuck's she? Thunder Rosa, where the fuck are these women? And yet you're doing this random tag team match for no fucking reason, only to build to a DQ finish that's going to lead to a match next week that we know Mariah May is going to win. What is the point? Make some compelling storylines. For God's sakes, I feel like I'm beating the table. So then broadcast team, they are hyping up the trio's main event, and then they tease to a video package of promoting the Bryan Danielson-Nigel McGuinness match next week at Grand Slam. So then the first line of the video package plays over them. We wonder what the fuck's going on. So then they try to play the video package again. It had technical difficulties. So then they finally were able to play the video package. It hypes up the history between Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness, has comments from McGuinness himself, Mark Briscoe, Roderick Strong, and Jerry Lynn. Okay. No Bryan Danielson on this show. I understand they're playing up this gimmick, which, by the way, pissed me the fuck off. Heavily leaning into the caveat of, oh, if Bryan Danielson's cleared, this match is happening. This match is happening. Don't fucking kid yourself. Bryan Danielson is facing Nigel McGuinness next week at Grand Slam. That's happening. And if not, then what the fuck are we doing here? Because the build to get to this, to a match that is like 15, 20 years in the making, to give it up in just 2 weeks in the name of selling tickets, and then compromising a massive angle that you tried to shoot at the pay-per-view All Out, where Bryan Danielson gets suffocated by one of his buddies and one of his best friends in the Blackpool Combat Club in Jon Moxley to sort of sell this angle. Jon Moxley comes in the next week saying, Bryan Danielson's indisposed, so Darby Allin, even though you won the title match, you're not having the title match. You're going to put it on the line against me. And then 20 minutes later, Nigel McGuinness has this challenge, and they're trying to disguise this as Nigel's, trying to be the heel and say, oh yeah, Bryan's scared, so he won't face me. The whole nature of the build of this has just been completely botched, and I don't know how in the fuck you could butcher this to this level. because I understand that there's people in the fan base that really want to see this. I'm really excited to see this. It's awesome to see that Nigel's wrestling. The story is kind of there, but like, you need to tell it on more of a mainstream level. You got to cater to more than just the sickos. And that's the issue with this whole feud, is that, okay, Nigel hates Bryan because Bryan got all the accolades, even out of like the two of them, and their feud in Ring of Honor really, like, advanced a lot of things in wrestling, and Bryan was able to, prosper off of that into being one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Nigel kind of fell by the wayside, and then he had injury history that retired him effectively, and he turned into a damn good commentator. But they've been planting the seeds on commentary for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it just leads to this random ass match at Arthur Ashe next week, Grand Slam. And I think it's almost fitting that the video package not being able to play correctly almost for 3 times was kind of like the biggest indicator to you that basically maybe the wrestling gods are telling you, yeah, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea, because it'll probably be a fine match, but just the logic gaps and the way that we got here from, oh, Bryan's going to defend against Darby Allin because he won the world championship, but, oh, he suffocated, so he can't compete. Jon Moxley's going to get the title shot match. Winner of that match is going to go to WrestleDream and face Bryan Danielson. But Bryan is just going to have this random-ass match with Nigel McGuinness, admittedly awesome, but there's no build to it, and nobody gives a shit. And you wonder why no amount of money is going to repair this company. They could get all the fucking television dollars that they want, but it's not going to change the fact that your product is ice cold because you are booking for geeks and sickos on the internet that don't even want to show up to your show, and some of them don't even want to fucking watch your show. So, like, man, this first hour was a fucking nightmare of a television show. I was like 45 minutes into this thing. I was like, nothing has fucking happened. And that was pretty much the whole fucking night. So, basically, so after that, Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir and Claudio make their entrance. Once they get near the barricade, Private Party attacks them. Claudio works over Mark Quinn. Moxley roughs up Isaiah Cassidy. Shafir gets in on it as well. Shafir's doing a good enough job being the intimidated woman in this group. Commander shows up because I guess, hey, he's a stray luchador now with the fact that the Lucha Brothers are out of there now. So he's with Alex Abrahantes. So he drop kicks Claudio off the apron. He tries to go for a suicide dive, but gets hit with an uppercut by Claudio. Alex Abrahantes shows up. He had a mic taken away from him by Marina Shafir. Mox pulls out a toolbox from underneath the ring, grabs a hammer. He said on the mic that he could end the careers of Private Party for what they did, but he doesn't want to do that, or he wasn't going to do that. Mox then said Private Party was with the company for 5 years and they're still in the same spots that they were in the beginning. Sound familiar? That's literally about half this company. He said he was going to give them something to overcome and added they should consider it a gift. So then he slams the hammer over the wrist of Cassidy while Claudio and Marina hold down Isaiah Cassidy. This brings out Darby Allin. He runs out, hits Claudio with the skateboard from behind. Moxley rolled Allin inside the ring. They jawed at each other for a little bit. Excalibur's hyping up the match at Grand Slam. Shafir is holding Claudio back at ringside, so then Allin swings the skateboard at Jon Moxley, who ducks and exits the ring. Darby gets on the mic, said, hey, I'm not the same guy I was 5 years ago. Said he would run through Moxley and would then become the next AEW World Champion in his home state of Washington at the WrestleDream pay-per-view. So effectively, this match next week is a number 1 contender match for the pay-per-view. Again, really just substandard, and really just basic build. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more physicality between these two. It just feels forced. It feels out of nowhere. Admittedly, it'll probably be fine, but this Jon Moxley build that's been odd. I don't really know what it is. I don't know what they're doing. The whole attack on Bryan, it's been these vague riddles that John's been speaking in. John's so good at being on the microphone that it's you can kind of look past a lot of this, but it's just what are we doing, man? What are we doing? And the convoluted nature of Moxley getting into this match and Bryan Danielson being the world champion and just having a random grudge match with Nigel McGuinness, knowing it's a combination of things. It just tells me real life events, Bryan being near the end, knowing that he's got an expiration date and he's going to have to go get surgery. They are like, okay, when are we going to have an opportunity to do this? But then you compromise long-term storytelling and booking to get it done. Darby won this title match, fair or not, and now he's just putting it on the line in the name of just, trying to get somewhere else in a convoluted nature. And then Bryan's just, having another match. It's like, and it's almost like nothing happened a couple weeks ago. So you're completely undermining the stuff that you've been saying. It's not consistent. Nothing is ever consistent. We get a Jack Perry video package. I don't give a shit. This tough guy act. Somebody needs to humble him. And it's just like, this TNT run has been a disaster because he literally shows up, beats up a geek, and he shows up in a short bus, beats up a geek for like 5-6 minutes, and then just leaves like some sort of tough guy. And it's like, yeah, he's had a little bit of a character change from Jungle Boy, but literally what his gimmick is, oh, I'm the scapegoat because I was the guy who was blamed for firing the biggest draw in this company in CM Punk because I didn't want to play ball with him, and I confronted him backstage after a match on the biggest show of the year. But because CM Punk got fired and Jack is still there, they're trying to give him all this heat, but nobody cares. I don't care. So, like, I don't even have notes on that thing, so I don't really care. So then we get the Beast Mortos taking on Ricochet. So, all right, look, Ricochet is fine, and I love Ricochet. I loved him in WWE, but there was a tweet that went out from Cage Side Seats on Wednesday and basically said Ricochet is in a much better spot than he was in WWE, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's had 3 singles matches against Kyle Fletcher, Sammy Guevara, and now the Beast Mortos, and he was in a random gauntlet match that was his debut. He's been in 4 matches since he got there at the end of last month for All In. What the fuck has he done that even tells you that he's in a better spot than he was in WWE? He has great matches, great. He can be semi-okay on the microphone, but he's not great, and I think that's what was his undoing in WWE. But he's literally the same guy that he was in WWE for, what, 5-6 years that he was there? Like, what are we talking about here? So he has this match with the Beast Mortos. Mortos is a lot of fun. Ricochet gets a crucifix bond, stomps the hand of Mortos, hits his vertigo finisher for the win. This goes 11 minutes. Ricochet, I mean, I understand Mortos is a bigger guy, but it's like Mortos doesn't win a lot. So Ricochet, going 50-50 basically for 11-12 minutes just doesn't really do it for me. And that's just proving my point. He's exactly the same guy that he was in WWE. It just doesn't do anything for me. We get a Hangman video package. So Hangman Adam Page, this was pre-done if you saw it on the internet, but some of the people, and this is kind of cool on AEW's part. They put this pre-tape video package, they air it for the audience that's there who maybe doesn't live on Twitter, which is a lot of AEW's audience. So Hangman is supposed to speak later on in the show and hype up the trio's main event. We show highlights that aired from Collision. FTR faced off against the Grizzled Young Vets, where the Outrunners made the save and sort of aligned themselves with FTR with a cool little muscle guy handshake at the end. A lot of flexing. I was very wrong about the Outrunners, and I feel kind of bad because I kind of ripped. Okay, everybody was typing up that they had a main event on Rampage. Guys, it was more of a knock at Rampage, and Rampage is just a terrible show, and main eventing it shouldn't be what you aspire to do. If you're over, then that's great. And it's clear that these guys are over as fuck. Like, they're selling merchandise like hotcakes. It's crazy. So good for Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd. I'm sorry. I've said that on my social media. I've said it on this show. I'm really sorry that I disrespected you guys. That was not meant for you. It was really meant on the fact that, Collision and Rampage shouldn't be where you're, striving to be. Getting pops in the main event like you did last week in that gauntlet is fucking awesome. So that's great. So basically, Excalibur then announces after showing the highlights of that whole situation, it's going to be another all-star tag match on Collision. Hook, the Outrunners, and FTR versus the Beast Mortos, Roderick Strong, and the Grizzled Young Vets. That's on Collision. I don't know about you guys. I ain't going to watch that shit. not to disrespect any of these guys, but I'm going to be watching college football like a normal person on a Saturday. They need to scrap Collision. They need to worry about fixing Dynamite. Because if you're going to keep having 600,000 people and struggling to get to 700,000 viewers, the fuck do you think a show on Saturday is going to do against college football when you don't even try? You don't even try. Since CM Punk left, Collision is a glorified Rampage. It's a 2-hour Rampage. Like, I just read you that match, that all-star tag match. I love FTR. FTR is as irrelevant as they have been since they got to AEW. They're still very popular with a lot of the, internet marks and stuff, but it's just like, they haven't been close to the tag team titles since last year. And they're just like, randomly just getting thrown on Collision every week to kind of just put on a good match. I love Dax and I love Cash, but what the fuck does this do for anybody? It doesn't advance anything. Like, I'm glad that the Outrunners are getting a showcase spot, but they need to do more with them. Frankly, they should be facing the Young Bucks next week in New York, not Ospreay and Fletcher. I get why they're doing it. They needed to make it feel bigger, but you at least had an over tag team staring you in the face last week, and you blew right past it. So then we get the promo with Hangman. Tony Schiavone's in the ring. He introduces Hangman. Page said he knew the day would come when Swerve Strickland was dealt with and would be gone. Hangman said there were dozens of other people who needed to pay for supporting him and protecting him. He took issue with the fans cheering for Swerve, which we finally have acknowledged that on mainstream television, not in a backstage promo that was pre-taped. Page recalled hearing those voices while he was at home suspended, so we talk about that. That's interesting. Page said he also heard another voice above the fans. Page said it came from the commentary desk, and he turned and looked at Schiavone, who showed some intimidation while bringing up Jeff Jarrett. Page said Jarrett wasn't in the ring with them, but Schiavone was. This brings Jeff Jarrett out to the ring. They've had some beef, like stemming back to the Owen Hart Cup when Hangman returned with this new persona that he's been developing over time. So he gets attacked. So Jeff Jarrett gets to the ring. He's attacked by Page once he gets there. Fight spills over to ringside. Hangman slams Jarrett's head on the barricade, then tossed him back inside the ring. Page goes for the buckshot, but a security guard grabs his leg. Several security guards are in the ring to separate everything. Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Karen Jarrett are there. Page stands on the stage. Jeff gets on the mic, and he said he'd be damned if he sat backstage and let Page put one finger on Schiavone. Jarrett said that there was an entire locker room that wanted to beat the hell out of Page, and Jarrett said he's at the front of the line. He then promised that if it's the last thing he does in his career, somehow he will kick Page's ass. Jarrett's music plays. He had to be held back by security and crew while Hangman went backstage as well. So, okay. If you watch my video on the channel about the disaster of the AEW main event scene, I've talked ad nauseum about how I think Hangman, if anybody deserves to be in the main event at Grand Slam or be fighting Darby Allin or fighting Bryan Danielson at WrestleDream, it should be Hangman Adam Page. They told you this literally by the way they booked the show. I understand that there's the nature of unsanctioned being the last match of the night. Still, however you want to score it, Hangman Adam Page in a non-title steel cage match, main evented over the World fucking Championship. This guy is the best thing in this company right now. The character metamorphosis and the character work is unlike anything, maybe in all of professional wrestling. Across all promotions, he is fucking awesome. And yet for some reason, and I get why the Jeff Jarrett angle is being played into, but this feels like a massive step down for Hangman Page. He should be fighting for the World Championship now. There's no need to wait for this. This guy main evented your pay-per-view, took down Swerve Strickland in one of the most violent matches, one of the most violent, hate-filled, heat-filled feuds that we've ever seen in AEW, and yet he's facing Jeff Jarrett and feuding with Jeff Jarrett. I get that that was a part of this build, but there's no need to go there right now when it is staring you plain as day right in the face that Hangman should be the one to retire Bryan Danielson. This is not fucking hard. And yet they're knee deep going down this weird angle with Jon Moxley and this takeover thing, which I have no investment in whatsoever. If it's Shane McMahon who is involved with this, I don't care. It really doesn't matter. And Darby Allin chasing it, I still think Darby Allin, God bless him, he's awesome. but he's not ready to be the world champion, and I'm not ready to buy into him as the world champion. So, all due respect to Jeff Jarrett, it's been nice to see him get this rise in some level of popularity and get a lot of respect on camera after being a heel that nobody gives a shit about. But this was just wrong. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get why this needs to be, like, enhanced further along down the screen when it's so blatantly obvious that the top heel in your company is Hangman Page, and under no circumstances whatsoever should he be getting less TV time than Chris fucking Jericho. Give me a fucking break. Chris Jericho gets 20 minutes to start the show. Hangman gets a 5-10 minute promo in the ring. What are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? So then we get a backstage interview with Ricochet. Will Ospreay interrupts, and Ospreay said there's always been heat between them. He said, my bad. Ospreay then offers a handshake. Ricochet passes on the handshake and recalled Ospreay telling him, hey, go get some wins and then come see me. Ricochet said it seemed like everyone in AEW was calling him out to prove something. He said everyone in AEW seemed to be worried about him. Seemed to be more worried about him than they are worried about them, than he's worried about them. Ricochet said nobody seems to be calling out Will Ospreay. Ricochet then said he spoke with Tony Khan and he got a match. Ricochet will face Will Ospreay for the International Championship on October 2nd, the 5-year anniversary edition of Dynamite in Pittsburgh. I would expect that to be a big show. They'll probably get the TV deal announced in somewhere along the line there. Ricochet then called Ospreay little bro as a neat little dig and then walked away. It was a fine promo for what it was. But guys, Ricochet's been there like a month and we're already doing this match. No build, no story, just a bunch of flippy shit. And we're just throwing this match on free fucking television. This was heralded as one of the biggest dream matches of all time. Two guys in their 30s, two of the best athletes, and two of the biggest high flyers in the history of this industry. And we are blowing it away on free television for a pop on your 5-year anniversary show. This should be on pay-per-view. I'm not even convinced it should have happened at Wrestle Dream. Let Ricochet beat some other people. Granted, you've got to have some better challengers that have, maybe faced Will Ospreay, but facing guys like Sammy Guevara, Kyle Fletcher, and the Beast Mortos, and then all of a sudden, Ricochet, Tony Khan has clearly gotten bored, and now all of a sudden, hey, we're just doing this match. We're just doing this match on free television. Like, holy shit. Like, why in the blue fuck are we blowing this match already in 2 fucking weeks? Ricochet has been there for a cup of coffee. And it goes back to what I said earlier about Ricochet. Like, he's literally the same guy he was in WWE. And my question is, when you get to this match on October 2nd in 2 weeks' time, where does Ricochet go from here? Because I'm telling you this right now, Will Ospreay is not losing that match. He's not losing. What sense is there in that? Will Ospreay has been like one of the only breaths of fresh air in this company that has been sort of new. Outside, Hangman Page has been there since the beginning. Will Ospreay is the major signing that has worked in this company for the last year, and he's been presented like a star. He's kind of gotten borderline overexposed. But still, this was the one match that everybody wanted to see. And you are blowing your load right out of the gate in the name of doing just a match in front of probably like 3,000 people in Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. Congratulations, Tony Khan. This is a surefire way to lose viewers and lose interest in your company when you are just going to blow matches away with no heat to them whatsoever other than, oh, these guys had a cool match like 10 years ago that's one of the biggest myths in wrestling, and these are two of the great high flyers. He's running this company like he is a fucking mark. What a ridiculous thing. And then we get the 6-man main event. It's the Elite, so it's Okada, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson versus Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, and Konosuke Takeshita. So, surprise here, Rick Knox is the referee. Don Callis is on commentary. I do need to point this out. I'll give a little bit of positivity. One of the only redeeming parts about the Elite is Matt Jackson's role when he flips the coin before Okada's entrance music hits. It syncs up perfectly. It's really neat. So I actually think that that's really cool. This was a standard, 6-man tag with the Young Bucks. Rick Knox not doing his job, not doing the officiating well. And so down the stretch of this match, Nicholas hits a facebuster on Fletcher. Did a moonsault off the top apron, onto Takeshita. Fletcher avoids the TK driver, hits his jumping tombstone on Matt. And he had the pin until Nick broke it up. I'm not going to call him Matthew Nicholas. I think that's ridiculous, but whatever. So then Ospreay takes out Nick with the hidden blade. Fletcher and Ospreay do their double team power slam, which I think is like the United Empire finishing maneuver. So shout out to Mark Davis, who might have been watching that somewhere. Very, very happy. And Fletcher pins Matt. This was literally the only way that it was going to go. I don't know why you needed to have this match. I mean, Takeshita had some neat interactions with Okada. He countered the Rainmaker into a Blue Thunder Bomb, which was really cool. You're clearly building to something there for the Continental Championship between those two. But yeah, the Young Bucks were going to have to take the loss because otherwise, what do we have to look forward to next week at Grand Slam? And that's my problem in booking this match. You didn't need to book this match. There were better ways to do this. There were also better ways to handle your tag team division rather than have Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher thrown together as a team, win the gauntlet, and ultimately go on to Grand Slam. So Fletcher and Ospreay get the win here. It's probably going to lead to the Bucks winning the match at Grand Slam next week. I just don't see any value in really Ospreay being a double champion, especially that he's also got the Ricochet match the week after that, so that's a problem too. We'll see where this goes, because after the match it got really interesting. So Callis enters the ring. He's celebrating with Fletcher and Ospreay. Takeshita joins in. The ref raises their arms. There's a United Empire graphic up there, which was really cool. Ospreay was pretty moved and taken aback by that. That was pretty cool for him. And Fletcher, so giving back to their days back in New Japan. Ospreay shakes hands with Callis. Fletcher and Takeshita shake hands. Everybody's dapping up. Everybody's happy. And then Ospreay goes to shake Takeshita's hand, and Takeshita just pie faces him in the face and said there's still some heat there from Ospreay beating Takeshita back at Revolution in early March. So that's the show. This was, honest to God, just a painful watch of 2 hours. That first hour was fucking awful. Literally, almost nothing happened on this entire show. You've got the Ricochet Ospreay match, which was really the only thing of value that happened on this show. Really the only thing. If you think back to anything that happened on the show, and you think back and you think to yourself tomorrow or the next day after that, God, what the fuck happened on Dynamite? Yeah. Out of all the stuff that happened on the show, the only thing that I can honestly tell you that really sticks in my mind, and it's for some negative reasons, is Ricochet and Ospreay's happening in 2 weeks on the 5th anniversary of Dynamite. But this just felt like a very carbon copy, cookie cutter version of Dynamite, where it feels like they just put the pencil down and just did the most basic shit possible to get through things. And then the stuff that they did was not very good. Chris Jericho getting 20 minutes off the bat was not great. The women's match was a whole bunch of nothing that was set up by nothing and then had a nothing finish. The Moxley stuff doesn't get advanced. The main event is just the same Young Bucks match that you've seen all the time. And Ricochet just has another cool match with a bunch of flips, but we've seen that before. So Hangman had a nice segment, but he's with Jeff Jarrett. But yeah, there's just none of this is going to even register on the Richter scale of meaning a goddamn thing. And the one thing that is meaning a goddamn thing is a match that you are hot-shotting onto free television for no other reason other than the fact that you are bored and you are booking for the sickos. This is not a way to run a fucking wrestling company, Tony Khan. And I don't give a fuck if you're going to have another 4 years. I'm happy that you're going to get the TV deal. It gives me more shit like this to be pissed off and talk about, to try and see if I can lecture anybody here on what it takes to be a professional wrestling promotion in 2024. But you don't have any engaging storylines or storytelling to even do this. And when you start your show with Chris Jericho, and then you finish it off with the same fucking Young Bucks match that I've been seeing for the last 5 years, this is why people are tired of it. And everybody heralding that the TV deal is going to change anything. No, it's not going to fucking change anything. WWE got paid so much fucking money 5 years ago, and that company was god-awful until Vince McMahon left, okay? And now they got this big Netflix deal, and you don't see WWE slowing down. They've built interesting storylines because they have a competent booker in Triple H. But this, and shows like this, with incoherent, illogical storytelling, nothing matches, with no story and no build, putting matches on television that shouldn't be on television, should be built to, is exactly why AEW is in the shitter right now. And any of you tribalists who are trying to dismiss what I am saying, you are exactly part of the problem. You need to stop washing Tony Khan's balls, stop ball washing him, stop telling him that he's so great. Because if he was so great and he was paying all of these wrestlers like Okada, Mercedes, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, why haven't the ratings gone up? Why are they sinking? Why are they sinking? No amount of money and getting a fourth show is going to change anything in the trajectory. It starts right at the top with Tony Khan. Until somebody gets in his ear, nothing with this promotion is going to change. You're going to keep getting shit shows like this. I'm slamming my goddamn table. Holy shit, this was a great one for me. Like, share, and subscribe here. And if you're an AEW fan, if you want to tell me I'm wrong, I'll engage with you in the comments. Like, you're wrong. Like, why are the numbers and the metrics going down? Stop eyeballing a TV deal. A TV deal doesn't do jack shit. It didn't do jack shit for WWE. They were losing ratings because Vince McMahon didn't give a shit. And I think Tony Khan is starting to not give a shit and just booking for himself. Or just, not caring. Hey, we proved a point. We got through 5 years. We got a second television contract, something WCW couldn't do. WCW couldn't survive. What the fuck are we talking about, people? All right. That's it for this show. Off the top rope here. Off the Mic Sports Network. Follow the channel at OT Mike Sports. Follow me at Off the Mic 28. Like, share, and subscribe here on the channel. I appreciate so much of the growth here on the channel. Love you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.